Welcome, welcome. Dr. Stephen Hobbs here from the Wealth Movement. And this is the Wellther series. And Wellthers are people that I have connected with. We've had conversations, we've worked together on some projects, and I believe that they have some awesome ideas for both business and life. And today I've got Gabrielle Brick with us, and we've met over the course of about the past year, I think. Yeah, it's about a year now. And we've explored a lot of different things from neuroscience and nutrition and school at home programs and raw chefing and entrepreneurial things that have just been all different directions of looking at things. And I just said, hey, listen, Gabrielle, will you come on and do a Wellther series with me? So we're going to do 3 in this series. And we might do some follow-up work. But to get us started into this, I'm just going to ask Gabrielle, can you just introduce a little bit more about who you are in your words, and then we'll dive into a couple of key words and get a conversation going.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I adore our time together. I have been in the health and wellness movement for about 2 decades. I've studied with some of the top leaders in the movement, old school guys, David Wolfe, Dr. David Jubb, Dr. Gabrielle Cousins. My background really is in superfoods, herbalism, and nutrition from a bioavailability standpoint. And then our relationship to food, right? So then I've gone into landmark and neuro-linguistic programming and addictive patterns and really understanding how the brain attaches to language and how that affects how we view life, our perception, whatever viewfinders we have on, and sort of have wrapped that up into nutrition and how that affects the chemistry of our body. And that's kind of really been a big passion for mine. So I do a little bit of, well, I do a lot of coaching, but I also do the private chefing, as you were saying. For some high profile clients, I do retreats, holistic wellness retreats and empowerment retreats. That's, and I'm a mama to twin boys that are amazing, and I'm homeschooling, and Dr. Stephen and I work together in that project, which is amazing. It's just a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And I think one of the other key words that we could put in there is movement, because you have quite a strong background in movement too, don't you?
I do. 25 years of dance.
Yes. And that is another way that really informs what you do.
Mm-hmm. It does. Yeah. Dance, I feel, it's funny because I started at 3 years old, and I majored, I was a double major in college, both in, it was all dance conservatory program. And then but I was also a personal trainer, and understanding the body mechanically was my first sort of introduction into my passion for how this machine works, right? And what is required to really get it to hum or purr in that perfect way.
And I think a lot of that, and we've sort of chatted about it, and we've talked a little bit about a concept like self-love. And I brought up the movement piece because there's the movement is you've got to love yourself, right? To be able to have the freedom to do the movement, and then to understand the nutrition that goes with that. Can you just share a little bit more about this concept of self-love as you see it related to what it is that you're doing and being for the world?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think self-love is one of those things that people hear and they're like, oh, I love myself. And I feel that the irony in that statement is that self-love is not easy. It's the hard choices. It's standing in those moments where we really have to say no or yes to those things that we think make us happy, that are really addictions or attachments that no longer serve us. And so in understanding the body and then the neurology of the brain and how it attaches to certain things, self-love for me is this discovery through food, because food is the basis. If we're going to talk about alchemy, it's that base level, right? We need nutrients in order to survive. And where are they coming from? What are they? And everything we put into our mouth, from the people we spend time to the stuff we watch on TV or listen to, is all a choice in self-love. It's all a conscious, or lack thereof, choice in, how do I want to feed my soul? How do I want to feed my body? Am I really living up to my fullest potential?
And you're talking about going in, but it's also the self-care about what's coming out, what you're
Exactly.
sharing, right?
Yes.
And in that, one of the words that I would bring out right now would be like a word like clarity, like being clear about what's going in, about clear what's coming out. Having that clarity, right, is important. Anything you want to add around that piece?
Yeah, I think clarity, I think sometimes clarity is like perception. It shifts and changes with where we're standing. And we're standing in one spot, and we understand that we need to shift one way or the other. And so there's a moment of clarity and understanding we need the shift. Then we take steps to further love ourselves, to further detach from those things that no longer serve. And all of a sudden, we're standing in a new perception. We're seeing clarity from a new perspective, right? All of a sudden, things become clear in a whole new way. And I think clarity is very much like perception. It really depends where you're standing in that moment. And it's an essential particle or piece to the overall growth.
Yeah, it's where you're standing, but it's also the steps you're taking. So you're
Correct.
you're an
Totally.
entrepreneur. You've got a lot of things going on, a lot of movement that's going on. To be clear about where you're going is an important element. So would you use the term mompreneur for you, or would you rather entrepreneur?
I am, I'm a mom and I'm an entrepreneur. So yeah, we can use mompreneur, but I think I probably prefer entrepreneur.
Entrepreneur. So from the position of where you come from, in terms of, like, we talked about movement and self-love and clarity, what would be something you might suggest is important for someone listening right now who's an entrepreneur to bring those three words together?
What I would say is, or what I'm going to say is, allow yourself the freedom to feel the ideas, to feel the momentum of your life, and to also allow yourself in the momentum to sit in the stillness of the energy swirling around you, the ideas, the excitement, the things that need to get done, so that clarity as to which path you should take really allows itself to make a front and center viewpoint.
And how do you do that for yourself?
That's a great question. That looks like many things. Sometimes that looks like me stopping my work and putting on music and dancing around my living room, and, just shaking it all out. And sometimes that looks like me sitting down with a cup of tea and just being still and being off the phone or the computer, not reading a book, just sitting in silence and stillness, right? And sometimes it looks like those action steps of, like, here's my to-do list, and I'm just going to put everything else on hold and just knock out these 5 things that are going to produce results, not those 5 things that are just time wasters, but those 5 things that produce an action outcome, as you would say.
Yes, yeah. Well, one of the things that I do is I house sit, and this current house sit is I got 2 big dogs, and what I'm enjoying is walking like at 7 in the morning and like 4 in the afternoon, and these 2 big dogs running around
Right.
with me and all this kind of stuff, right? And we're in sort of like a park area. So for me, that's how I'm really expressing it at this point. So
That's
um,
like a moving meditation.
it is, right, because you're watching them enjoy what's happening, and all of a sudden they're gone. All right, okay, minute. Oh, here they're coming back now. They've done what they needed to do in their chase, right? And they're back. And so we each have a way in which to do it, to find that self-love, that clarity, that movement, right? And that's important. And thank you for your examples, all right?
Yeah.
But along the way, you must have stepped into the world of being mentored, and wealth movement, wealthers have a strong mentor conversation that comes up. And you mentioned a lot of different people that you've interacted with. So how has mentoring and mentorship evolved in your life and in your world for you, and then how you might share it with other people? Let's unpack that a little bit.
Sure, sure. It's another great question. Um, you know, I think because as a mentor and a coach now, mentorship before that was a very different feeling for me. Like being like an apprentice, right? Being taken under the wing and really like doing and sitting and watching and listening, right? That was really what mentorship was for me then, was really just being present and observing and drinking up as much information as I could from these people that had so much experience and wisdom that I could only hope to garner by being with them. And then, you know, as I moved through that phase, mentorship, you know, you come out of the apprentice stage and you become the mentor and the coach to others while you're still learning from your mentor, right? And so that has a totally different vibe, you know. And so the apprenticeship is still going on, but I don't know what would be the next word for that, but it feels different because you don't feel like such a youngling, right? You feel like you have this contextual experience of really how to hold another person because you've been held. And I think that in and of itself is sort of, you know, I still have coaches. Like, I don't think we could ever not have coaches, no matter where you are in your life. And I talk to people who are, and I'm friends with people who are very high up in their mentorship, right? What they stand for in the world and what they give. And every single one of them has someone they lean on. And those people have someone they lean on, right? I mean, I think in a way we all show up to mentor each other through
Yeah.
the process. So we all have something to learn and give simultaneously at each moment.
Well, there's a truism that as a mentor, if you haven't learned something from your mentee, then something is not quite going correctly in the arrangement.
Mm-hmm.
How I look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've learned so much from those that I have mentored. And I know I've
Right.
had four major mentors, almost like a decade kind of thing. And one of them, well, it actually ended up being a failed business. But he mentored me.
Mm,
You may not
yeah.
see it that way, but he gave me a lot of great insights that are putting me into my current business concept. So he did indirectly, without even knowing it, he was a mentor to me. All right.
Right.
So
Right.
this
Absolutely.
mentoring storyline, right, is really important. And I think you're doing a little bit of that even with some of the programs that you're offering right now. I know you said, I am a coach, I'm a mentor, but can we just talk a little bit about the School at Home program?
Sure.
Because
Sure. Sure.
I find that one fascinating at the moment, because that's where we're having conversations around neuroscience and nutrition, right? And human performance improvement and learning and educating and experience. Like, we're having lots of great conversations and shooting some of our
Yes.
own videos for that program. But can you just explain a little bit about what is School at Home and where you're going with it and how it might even lean into mentorship?
Sure. Absolutely. And I have to say to you, Stephen, in this conversation, because I want everyone to hear, like, your showing up in that project with me has been such an incredible inspiration. And I have felt so inspired and so mentored by you within this project. Um, and so thank you for that. You know, what you bring to the table is always fascinating. It always it calls for self-reflection. It reminds me of why I do what I do, and it also it sends me out, you know, into the world with new vision and inspiration, and it's phenomenal. And so thank you for that. I just really wanted to take a moment to say that. School at Home is a project that I developed because my kids had been in Waldorf, and I just didn't want to do the traditional school route. And I thought, I looked at other homeschooling programs, and listen, every program is amazing in its own right, and it has this thing that it's going to offer, our children or other children or our society or, our world. For me, I want something different, and I haven't been able to find it, so I decided to create it. And hey.
You entrepreneur, you.
Oh my God, I know, sometimes, I swear. So basically what we're doing is we're looking at, I'm staying in my superpower. Originally, I wanted to, of course, create this epic project that changes the world, and hey, maybe it will. In the meantime, really what my passion is again, what we were discussing around food. And just in my years of coaching, not only my own transformation, but coaching others, mentoring others, I've witnessed incredible transformation that affects how a person thinks, moves, how their body, creates and changes, visible changes and emotional, spiritual changes. And so then I'm thinking of that, and I'm looking at my children, and I want them to have an educational experience through what we call school, but in a way that really foundationally is understanding that without nutrition and without our body and our mind actually functioning in a particular way, how can we have all of these other things? And so School at Home has become sort of this program where it's a TED Talk like style, where lots of interviews with Dr. Stephen Hobbs, and where we get into the conversation of education, of what is experiential learning, the fact that life is school, right? And so what's the foundation for that? Well, for me, that's nutrition and understanding how the brain works as well. And so that language piece, which then dips into how a child learns. And what do we do? How do we really set that up properly? How do we properly mentor our child? How do we let them mentor us when we need to be? Things like that.
And I think what we're doing here is drawing a parallel, because the Wellther series is about business and life. And we're hinting, I know you're entrepreneuring into the life of parents who've got the children, but I think there's a parallel here that I think we can pick up when we get together for our next time, because this is one of three, is that you mentioned about the notion of the physical, the mental, the spiritual, right? The connections there. You're talking about School at Home, but some of what you're talking about is also what happens or needs to happen in the workplace, right?
Mm-hmm.
For organizations, like, yes, it happens in the home, but it needs to happen in organizations. And this notion of the health and wellness that you've talked about. But going out on this call right now, knowing about the School at Home piece, and you have an opportunity to say something to some parents who are listening right now, what would be that one piece of insight that you would like to share with the parents who are listening in? And next time we'll talk about from a workplace. From a parent's point of view, what would you like to share with them that would be of interest, that might be connected to movement, clarity, self-love, mentorship, or something like that?
I would like to say that follow your instincts in your knowing that giving our children that extra, whether School at Home or the philosophy at School at Home was a supplementational piece to what you're already doing. Part of self-love as a parent is, and for our children, and teaching them self-love. Our children learn through experience. They learn through the witnessing, the observation of how we behave. And how are we teaching them self-love? And for me, in our house, the foundation of that is in food and nutrition. And talking about our feelings and our emotions, and understanding that there is no set way really to do anything, because each home is unique. Each environment is its own ecosystem. And so where do you need more clarity in your ecosystem? Where do you need more self-love in your ecosystem? Where can you allow your child to really show you the way, while you also maintain the guidance, of just really the nurture and the love, putting your arm around them and saying, okay, I hear you. Whether you can supply that need at that time is as a different conversation, but just to bring in that mentorship piece of our children mentor us just as much as we mentor them. And self-love then becomes, I think, the root, if we really stand back and ask in honesty, in humble honesty, where our ecosystem needs help.
And I think that's a great segue, and thank you for that. And that imagery of the mentoring again between the parent and the child is very relevant. I think when we get back for our next conversation, why don't we look at words like ecosystem and come back to the school of work and link it back to the workplace, and what does that mean in terms of bringing out this health and wellness storyline. And I think that would be a great contribution as in the Wellther series. How's that sound? Would you go that way?
That sounds great, Stephen. I would love that. Thank you.
Well, we're at our time here, so let's say goodbye for this one, and catch the next one, which obviously will be with Gabrielle Brick, is 2 of 3 of the Wellther series. So thank you, Gabrielle.
Thank you, Dr. Stephen.